In the unforgiving Badlands, where only claws and fangs can keep you alive, a lost Mustang Foal lay dying beside a dry creek bed. Darkness crept in, and from the deep red stone ridges an old wolf emerged. Death seemed inevitable, until something no one could have imagined happened. And from that moment on, the world stood still before a miracle that defied every instinct of survival. The South Dakota sun scorched the Badlands with a fury that felt like the world might end by sundown. The red rock formations blazed like fire, cracked and crumbling under the relentless heat, stretching as far as the eye could see. Wind howled through the canyons like the hiss of some ancient creature, carrying with it fine dust and the scent of scorched earth. No voices, no machines, just the labored breath of nature trying to survive in a furnace of dust and silence. Amid that cruel land, a small figure clung to life like a forgotten ember. Rowdy, a 3-week-old wild Mustang colt, had collapsed in the dry riverbed, his breath shallow and broken, like the dying notes of a song left unfinished. His once glossy chestnut coat was now matted with dirt and grit. His vision blurred from the searing sun and stinging dust, no longer able to tell where the sky ended and the earth began. 2 days earlier, a sudden summer storm had torn through the plains, throwing the wild herd into chaos. Amid the frenzy, Rowdy had lost his mother. He chased after neighs and pounding hooves laced with thunder, but his young legs couldn't keep up. When the skies cleared, he was alone, standing in the middle of an empty prairie with no direction, no food, no water, and no soul in sight. Until a pair of amber eyes spotted him. Hidden in the shadow of a stone pillar, an old wolf watched Rowdy's sluggish movements. Dustpaw. That was the name hunters gave him after tracking his worn footprints through winter dust the year before. He wasn't a stranger to this land. Dustpaw had once been the alpha of a northern pack, but was overthrown by younger, faster, more ruthless males. Since then, he'd wandered alone, drifting from the Pine Ridge Hills to the lowlands near the Missouri River. Time had etched its toll into Dustpaw's body. His muzzle had gone silver, one hind leg dragged slightly, a long scar carved down from his left shoulder blade to his ribs, a relic from the final battle he'd lost. He could smell blood, a scent that was both familiar and tempting. But there was something else too, the trace of rain left over from the storm. Somewhere nearby, a shallow puddle might still hold water. His stomach growled, dry and hollow. He hadn't eaten anything more than lizards and old carcasses for days. A helpless foal under the blazing sun, too weak to run. With a predator's instinct, Dustpaw could have taken just a few steps, sunk his teeth into the colt's throat, and slept with a full belly. But he didn't. Rowdy lay there, breathing like each inhale cost him all the strength he had left. His eyes fluttered half open, and at that moment, as if something unseen pulled them together, his gaze locked with Dustpaw's. Silence fell between the two creatures. No growl, no whinny, just a look shared between innocence and experience, between fear and fatigue. Dustpaw froze. He didn't move forward. He squinted, tilting his head slightly as if trying to decode a foreign feeling that had stirred inside. It wasn't pity. Wolves didn't know pity. It was something softer, something quieter. Maybe it was recognition, from one abandoned soul to another. In the distance, the low sputter of a Jeep engine echoed over the rocks. Red dust billowed under the tires. Inside sat Dr. Lily Whitlow, a biologist specializing in wild Mustangs, squinting ahead through a scratched windshield. "You're sure the GPS ping came from this area?" she called over the roar of the engine. Next to her, Ranger Cole Grady sat in the passenger seat. Solid build, mid-40s, wide-brimmed hat, and a faded camo jacket that had seen too many summers. "Positive," Cole replied, eyes fixed on the blinking screen of his tracker. "We already swept the eastern woods. If it's not here, the signal's a fake." "There's nothing fake about a foal breaking off from its herd in a storm," Lily muttered, narrowing her eyes at a distant white blur. "Slow down, I think I see something." The Jeep slowed, maneuvering between outcroppings toward the dry creek. Cole reached for his binoculars, but Lily was already out the door. "Lily, wait, there's movement next to the foal." She froze. Through the swirling dust, two figures emerged clearly. A small Mustang lying motionless, and a gray wolf standing perfectly still just 20 yards away. The world seemed to stop. Sunlight glinted off Dustpaw's eyes, but he didn't flinch. He didn't turn away. He didn't attack. He didn't leave. He just stood there, staring down at the fragile creature before him. He knew they were watching. He smelled human sweat, gasoline, and barley from Lily's jacket. But he didn't run. Cole lowered his binoculars, stunned. What the hell is going on? Lily didn't answer. She was watching the impossible. A wolf, not stalking prey, but standing guard. An old wolf, a dying foal. And an invisible signal from a land with no name. That's when everything began. Rowdy no longer felt the sun or the wind. All that remained was a ringing in his ears, the scorching earth against his cheek, and breath so dry they felt pulled from the heart of a furnace. Hunger and thirst had disappeared, replaced by a hollow stillness, like his body had surrendered, but something deeper still clung on. And another breath entered the air around him. A breeze passed over his face, carrying the scent of something he had never known before. Earth, damp fur, and loneliness. Rowdy struggled to open his eyes, lids heavy as stone. The first image he saw, a pair of amber eyes hovering near, deep, ancient, and filled with something heavy and strange. Dustpaw. The old wolf lowered his snout close to Rowdy's face, inhaling slowly. The foal's breath was so faint it was almost imperceptible. His tiny body trembled, not from fear, but from the edge of collapse. His coat was soaked with sweat, clinging to his skin. His breaths came in short, rasping wheezes like the last sputters of a dying fire. Dustpaw stepped back. He looked around, his thick, fur-covered ears perked up, listening. A faint breeze blew from the east, carrying the scent of water. He knew. There was a shallow dip in the land, just a few dozen steps away, where a puddle may still linger from yesterday's storm. Dustpaw turned and walked away, leaving the foal behind. Minutes later, he returned. His muzzle was soaked. He leaned down, letting the water drip from his snout slowly onto Rowdy's cracked lips. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3. Rowdy weakly pursed his lips, trying to swallow the precious moisture like a drowning man grasping at straw. Dustpaw continued. He went back, fetched more water, returned, again and again. By the third trip, Rowdy's eyes cracked open. He looked at the wolf. Neither moved for several seconds. An innocent gaze met a world-weary one. And though they shared no common language, something was understood. An unspoken pact was made. Less than 200 meters away, Lily and Cole had moved closer, watching through binoculars and a handheld camera. Cole was filming in slow motion. Lily stood frozen, barely able to speak. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Cole whispered, eyes glued to the lens. "Yes, but I can't explain it." Lily replied quietly, "That wolf, he's giving the foal water?" "Not just water. Look closer, he's not drinking any of it. He's bringing it back for the foal," Lily said, her hand trembling. "I've been tracking Mustangs in the Badlands for 10 years. I've never seen anything, read anything that comes close to this." "This is the wild, Lily," Cole murmured. "There are no rules out here, except survival." "Then he's breaking the only rule." Both stood in silence, watching as Dustpaw gently licked the foal's neck. He didn't rush. He wasn't frantic. He was deliberate, steady, as if he knew the colt still had a chance. And then Dustpaw did something that made Cole nearly curse out loud. He gently tugged on Rowdy's mane with his teeth, like he was whispering, "Come on, kid, you don't get to quit yet." Of course, Rowdy couldn't get up. But when Dustpaw pulled again, the colt stirred. A rough breath escaped his throat. He lifted his head, just a few inches, before collapsing again, body limp as sand slipping through fingers. Cole stepped back, exhaling. He won't last much longer. "We're not letting him die out here," Lily said, already reaching into the back seat for her portable animal first aid kit. "I'm calling in the mobile vet team. They might not make it in time. Then we'll keep him alive until they do." Lily activated her satellite phone, calling Rapid City. Her voice was sharp and sure, the tone of someone used to field emergencies. The dispatch confirmed a wildlife rescue team would arrive in 8 hours. Until then, it was just them, a dying colt and a wolf doing something no one dared believe was real. That evening, the first video began spreading online. A couple camping in the southern hills of the Badlands had captured blurry footage, just before sunset, of a wolf gently licking the face of a foal. Their 8-year-old son uploaded it to TikTok with the caption, "This wolf just saved a horse, I'm not kidding." Within 3 hours, it had over 1 million views. In a desert where death is usually the only certainty, an old wolf was risking the last thing he had left, his instincts. And a Mustang Foal, who had lost everything, started breathing just a little bit stronger. Dusk fell like a trapdoor, slamming shut without warning. The golden brilliance of the Badlands faded into hues of purple and cool gray, turning the once scorching terrain into a hazy dream dissolving into darkness. Night winds crept through cracks in the rock, through patches of wiry grass, whispering a warning. This is no place for the fragile to survive. Lily and Cole had set up a small camp about 20 yards from Rowdy. A single tent stood beside the now silent Jeep. Headlamps flickered. They clutched binoculars and thermal cameras. Lily's hand never left the satellite phone as she kept checking for updates from the incoming rescue team out of Rapid City, expected to arrive just after dawn. "Can you still see them?" Lily whispered, lying low behind a mound of earth. Cole lowered his infrared binoculars. "Clear as day. Dustpaw hasn't moved, still right beside Rowdy." "It's insane," she murmured. "A wolf, standing guard over a Mustang Foal? This goes way beyond predator instinct." Cole turned to her, headlamp casting a soft glow over half his face. "Maybe he lost a pup, or got left behind by his own pack. I've seen female wolves return to old dens long after the pack moved on. Parental instincts, even in the wild, don't always follow logic." Lily said nothing. She quietly unzipped her backpack, pulling out a collapsible research bowl. From her canteen, she poured water, just enough, and cradled the bottle close to her chest to keep it warm against the cold. "What are you doing?" Cole asked, frowning. "Testing Dustpaw's reaction. If he takes the bowl and doesn't flee, it means he trusts me." Her voice was soft but resolute. Step by cautious step, she walked into the night. No light, no sound. Just a human, carrying a bowl of water, walking toward the thin boundary between human and wild. Dustpaw raised his head at the sound of her footsteps. His amber eyes gleamed under the dim moonlight. He didn't growl. He didn't retreat. He simply waited. Lily placed the bowl about 3 steps from Rowdy, crouched low, and backed away slowly toward Cole. That moment stretched out like a lifetime. Dustpaw stood. His hind leg trembled, but he moved forward. He sniffed the bowl once, twice. Then, gently, he took it in his mouth, turned, and carried it back to Rowdy. He placed it just near the colt's snout, nudging it gently with his paw. Rowdy weakly stuck out his tongue, lapping tiny sips. Cole blinked, stunned. "Jesus, he's not just keeping him alive. He knows how to help him survive." Lily said nothing. She quietly wiped away tears that had come not from sadness, but from witnessing something greater. A connection that biology didn't have a name for. As the temperature dropped fast through the night, the whole land turned to sharp cold. Dustpaw curled his body around Rowdy's small frame. His thick, grizzled fur pressed against the foal's side, sharing warmth. No one had asked him to do this. No instinct required it. It was simply a choice. Just before dawn, the eastern sky began to glow with pale light. Lily jolted awake at the distant thump of rotor blades. She rushed out of the tent, flashlight in hand, waving the agreed signal. A Bell 412 helicopter descended onto a clearing half a mile away. As the rescue team unloaded equipment, Lily sprinted back to where Rowdy lay. Dustpaw was still there. His eyes were tired, his ears drooped, but his gaze had not changed. When he saw Lily, he lifted his head like he was passing on a responsibility. Lily stopped, knelt down in front of him. She didn't touch him. She simply looked. And in the soft dawn light, a woman and an old wolf understood each other. With no words at all. "Thank you," she whispered. Dustpaw dipped his head, then turned and walked away, toward the jagged rocks to the north. He didn't look back. He didn't growl. He simply left. Rowdy was gently lifted onto a stretcher, an IV line already in place, his body wrapped in thermal blankets. Dr. Mava Thompson, the lead veterinarian, stepped out of the helicopter and immediately assessed the situation. Severe dehydration, hypothermia, possible renal failure. We need blood work, IV fluids, and core temperature stabilization within 2 hours, Mava said briskly. Or he's not going to make it. There's something else, Lily said, holding up her camera. I have something you need to see. She played the footage she'd recorded the night before. Dustpaw bringing water, Dustpaw lying vigil, Dustpaw growling at the sound of distant coyotes. Dustpaw, the old wolf, curled beside a dying foal like a fathered an orphaned child. Mava didn't speak for nearly a minute. When the video ended, she exhaled, her voice low. I've never seen anything like this in my life. We're witnessing something beyond instinct, Lily replied. Something beyond predator and prey. Maiva nodded, then turned toward the crew. Then we saved them both, fair and square. Up on a nearby ridge, Dustpaw was already gone. But his paw prints remained, deep and unwavering. Like a declaration that needed no translation. Some choices don't come from instinct. They come from something deeper, something only the deeply wounded can understand. That night, northern winds swept down through the jagged crests of the Badlands, howling like ancient spirits. Darkness thickened, and the soft glow from Lily's camp was no more than flickering embers against an ocean of wild black. The helicopter had returned to base, carrying news of hope for one creature, Rowdy. But another soul had stayed behind in the dust and silence of this unforgiving land. Dustpaw had not gone far. He returned to the dry creek bed once the artificial light faded. Instinct told him to leave, but something deeper pulled him back. Maybe it was the mingled scent of sweat and tears lingering on the colt's skin. Maybe it was the choked, fragile rhythm of Rowdy's breath in the dark. Or maybe it was something Dustpaw couldn't even name. Night deepened, and from somewhere far across the plateau, a long howl pierced the silence. Lily was journaling under the faint red beam of her headlamp when she froze. She looked up, slowly stepping outside the tent, her eyes scanning westward. A second sound followed, harsher, overlapping howls laced with raspy yips. "Coyotes," Cole said, stepping beside her. "Sounds like a large group. 4, maybe 6. They hunt night." "You're sure? I've lived here 20 years, Lily. I know those calls like I know my own heartbeat." Lily bit her lip. God, Dustpaw's still out there. They rushed back to the equipment hub, activating the infrared camera they'd mounted earlier. Grainy images came into focus. A familiar silhouette curled beside a small mound, Dustpaw. Then, other signals appeared, glowing dots moving in slow looping patterns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 coyotes. They're surrounding him. Cole whispered. "They think Dustpaw's prey," Lily said, eyes fixed on the screen. "Or maybe he's guarding something they want too." "Rowdy?" In the blackness, Dustpaw rose. His fur bristled. His shoulders lowered into a defensive crouch. A deep growl rumbled from his aging throat, not strong like his alpha days, but filled with something else, resolve. A warning not to cross a line he had chosen to draw. The first coyote emerged into view. Lean, quick, its fur mottled like mud. It stepped closer, inch by inch, eyes glowing. It stopped 5 meters away, baring its teeth, tongue flicking across its lips. Dustpaw didn't move. Another appeared to the left, then a third from behind. They began to fan out, forming a slow crescent, certain that the old wolf was cornered. But Dustpaw didn't back down. He lowered his frame further, growled again. The sound made Lily's hair stand on end. It was a broken roar, but behind it was something fierce. "This life is not yours to take. Not while I still draw breath." From the shadows, Lily and Cole watched, barely breathing. "We can't just sit here," Lily said, gripping a metal trekking pole. "Don't be stupid. If they scatter, Dustpaw's done for." "You think he stands a chance against all 5, even with us staying put?" she snapped. "I can't let him die protecting Rowdy." She grabbed a steel camp pot and banged it once with her pole. Cole caught on. He grabbed the spotlight. "Okay. One good scare, just one." Together they moved to the edge of the rocky bluff and, "Hey, get out of here!" Lily shouted. Cole flipped on the light, casting a harsh beam into the dark. The coyotes scattered, startled by sound and glare. The first backed off. The second wheeled around. Within seconds, the rest disappeared into the night beyond. Dustpaw remained. He didn't turn to look at them. He didn't run. After nearly a full minute, he lay back down, his eyes still fixed on the direction the coyotes had vanished. A posture of vigilance. Lily clenched her fists. Her voice cracked. "He's protecting Rowdy, more than we are." Cole's voice was low, reverent. "He's doing something that should have been done by a person. I don't know who that wolf used to be in his world, but tonight, Dustpaw's a warrior." All through the night, Dustpaw didn't sleep. He didn't leave his post. The cameras recorded everything. He turned his head constantly, ears twitching, body tensing at every strange sound. Sometimes he circled. Sometimes he simply rested, nose close to where Rowdy had once laid, testing the air, checking a breath that was no longer there. In the tent, Lily and Cole took turns on camera duty. Their only heat came from old lanterns and hand warmers. Neither of them could sleep. Neither of them dared look away from the screen. "Tomorrow," Lily said quietly, "I'll do everything I can to make sure no one touches that wolf." You thinking of bringing him to the rescue center? Cole asked. I'm thinking of letting the world see this, what it means when something chooses compassion. If a wolf can choose mercy, then maybe people should at least recognize it. As dawn broke, casting gold over the jagged red cliffs of the Badlands, the first light caught Dustpaw's amber eyes. He turned, looking toward the camp where Lily emerged, carrying a bowl of water and a soft cloth. Rowdy was still alive, and Dustpaw, after a night with no sleep, was still standing. Morning light swept across the rugged land of the Badlands, painting the scarred stone ridges in hues of ember and blood. The helicopter returned, this time carrying medical crates, hoist slings, and a full team. Head veterinarian Dr. Mava Thompson, a clinical assistant, and a transport tech. As the team touched down, Lily and Cole stood ready. She led Mava to where Rowdy lay wrapped in thermal blankets, his breathing shallow but steady. We administered emergency fluids overnight, Lily said quickly, clutching a clipboard full of notes. He responded slightly to howling sounds. I believe the sense of safety he felt near that old wolf is part of what's keeping him alive. Mava crouched beside Rowdy, her seasoned hands tracing his ribs, neck, and leg joints. He's teetering on the edge, she murmured, voice raspy from fatigue. If clots are forming in the kidneys, we could lose him within the hour, but if this response is genuine, if the wolf's scent actually triggered stabilization, then maybe we've got a fighting chance. Cole cut in. You need to see this. He handed Mava the handheld camera. The screen lit up with footage. Dustpaw bringing water, curling his body against Rowdy, growling into the dark at threats unseen, guarding, breathing, staying. Mava said nothing for a long time, not because she didn't believe it, but because she couldn't believe what she was seeing. My God, I never thought I'd say this, but that wolf might be the reason this colt is still breathing. It's not instinct, Lily said firmly. It can't be. No, it's not survival behavior. It's something else, something intentional. And we have to acknowledge that. Suddenly, Rowdy stirred. A tremble passed through his limbs. His eyes fluttered open. Lily leaned close, whispering, Easy, baby, I'm here. Mava blinked as Rowdy's breathing grew quicker. His nose twitched, tilting toward the air, searching. His scent memory just kicked in. Mava muttered. Lily understood immediately. She stood, scanned the area, and ran to where Dustpaw had lain through the long night. The shallow impression was still there. Tufts of gray fur clung to the red dirt. She gently gathered the dust and fur into a clean white handkerchief and folded it tight. Returning to Rowdy's side, she unwrapped the bundle and held it near his nose. At first, nothing. Then, Rowdy inhaled, deeply. For the first time in 2 days, he lifted his head. His eyes widened, scanning the air. Mava knelt close, stunned. You just reawakened the one thing inside him that still wanted to survive. The smell of someone who didn't hurt him, Lily whispered, a friend. Rowdy's breath steadied. His nostrils flared gently, searching for the scent that had meant life. Lily held the handkerchief steady, her eyes burning with emotion. She knew. Dustpaw had saved Rowdy not by force, but by presence. Mava stood and turned to her team. Prep the sling. We're flying him to the recovery center in Sioux Falls. He'll need dialysis, kidney monitoring, and keep that scent near him for at least 3 days. Rowdy was placed carefully into a padded sling, secured with safety straps, and hoisted slowly into the helicopter. In that moment, Lily looked up at the hills, where Dustpaw had once stood guard. He was no longer there. You're not going with us? Cole asked. Lily shook her head. No. There's someone else I need to find. If I'm right, Dustpaw is hurt, and I won't let him vanish like he never existed. You plan to find one old wolf in over 1,000 square miles? Lily nodded. Not with trackers, with instinct. Cole looked at her, then handed over military-grade binoculars and a 2-way radio. If you need backup, just call. 3 hours later, Lily still hadn't left the creek bed. She followed every faint paw print Dustpaw had left in the dry sand, eyes sweeping the worn trails where grass was bent and thinned. Then she spotted it. A single thread of gray fur caught on a low cactus. She bent down, fingers grazing it. She looked toward the northwest, the direction of the stone crevices where wolves sometimes hid from the cold. Dusk fell again. No engines, no voices. Just Lily, her breath, and her boots on fractured stone. Then, from a narrow gap in the rocks, a sound, a soft groan, low and broken, like the twang of a snapped violin string. Dustpaw, she called gently. Not too loud. Not a threat. A rustle. Then silence. She crept forward, lowering herself. In the darkness, she saw him, curled on his side, chest sunken, breath shallow. His eyes were open, dim and fading like starlight. But when he saw her, something inside them flickered. Recognition. Lily dropped to her knees. She didn't touch him. She simply sat outside the stone alcove, quiet, keeping watch, as he had done. "You don't deserve to be forgotten like this," she whispered. "You saved a life, and I swear I won't let you be left behind." Dustpaw didn't move, but his ears tilted slightly toward her voice. Lily pressed the radio. "Cole, I found him. He's alive, needs medical, sending coordinates." She lowered the device and looked back at the fading eyes. "Hold on, someone's waiting for you." And in the tightening cold of the Badlands, the old wolf closed his eyes, not to hide, but to rest, for the first time in days. And a woman sat guarding him, just as he once had. Morning light streamed through the frosted glass of the Wild Mustang Rehabilitation Center in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The scent of hay, antiseptic, and warm milk lingered in the air. In the center paddock, roofed with raw timber beams, Rowdy stood unsteady on his feet. His legs still trembled, but his eyes shimmered with something new, alertness. Dr. Maeva Thompson never left the surveillance monitors. Every 3 hours, she checked the biometric readings transmitted from the small sensor fastened around Rowdy's neck. Heart rate, stable. White blood cell count, improving. But something kept tugging at her gut. Rowdy was eating less, sleeping less, and more than once, he just stood there, motionless for hours, gazing at the paddock gate like he was waiting for something. "He doesn't just need medicine," Maeva muttered to herself. "He needs the soul he bonded with." 300 miles west, Lily sat beside a reinforced enclosure at a remote wolf recovery station built into the sandy hills of Pine Ridge. The facility was quiet, funded discreetly by the Federal Wildlife Division. Dustpaw was alive. Weak, but alive. He could drink from a shallow dish on his own, nibble on softened venison, and occasionally rise to his feet for a few minutes at a time. His amber eyes, clear, deep, and heavy with time, often stared out through the open gate. Not nervously, not as if trying to escape, as if watching for something. "I've never seen a wolf wait for someone," one of the caretakers said. "He doesn't howl, doesn't growl, doesn't hide, but he doesn't withdraw either. He's present, like he's still looking for something." Lily stood there, following his gaze. She understood. This wasn't myth. This wasn't romanticizing. It was real. 3 days later, when Dustpaw finally stood solidly on all 4 legs, Lily made a bold request. She proposed relocating Dustpaw to an intermediate containment zone adjacent to the Mustang Rehab Facility, a semi-wild area with secure fencing and narrow grassland where interspecies responses could be monitored. Maeva resisted at first. "You're suggesting we let a predator within a few meters of a recovering foal? This isn't a Disney movie." "This is science," Lily answered calmly. "Or if it's not, then call it faith." Eventually, Maeva agreed, on strict conditions. 24/7 video surveillance, emergency alert systems, and a biosafe tracking chip inserted into Dustpaw. That same afternoon, Dustpaw was carefully transported in a reinforced carrier truck, flanked by 2 wildlife handlers. When they reached the halfway enclosure, he stepped out without hesitation, limping, yes, but steady. Across the fence, Rowdy was already there. No one announced it, no whistles, no calls. But the moment their eyes met, a stillness fell over everything. One gaze was soft, young, and bruised, but still full of belief. The other was aged, tired, but holding on to something sacred, a promise. Rowdy didn't whinny, didn't charge. He simply stood still. Dustpaw didn't growl, didn't pace. He walked slowly to the edge of the fence and sat. And that was it. No language, no gesture. But something passed between them. Something that didn't belong to instinct. Something that didn't belong to species. "I think they just communicated in a way we've forgotten how to understand," Maeva said quietly beside Lily. "It's not that we've forgotten," Lily whispered back. "It's that we stopped feeling it." The next day, Rowdy moved closer to the fence on his own. He didn't eat, didn't drink, just stood there. One of the vet techs cautiously opened Dustpaw's gate, just a few feet. Dustpaw stepped out, paused, stopped 3 feet from Rowdy. He looked up, took a breath. Rowdy let out a soft, nearly inaudible nicker and pressed his forehead gently against the mesh fence. The security camera above them clicked, capturing the image that would later ripple across the globe. A Mustang Foal with his forehead resting on one side of a wire fence. An old wolf pressing his head to the other. And in Dustpaw's amber eyes, embers that still burned in the wind. 2 weeks passed. Dustpaw moved freely within the half-wild compound. He still limped, but his strength returned. Rowdy now ran, his hooves firm, his mane beginning to lift in the wind like a young warrior's banner. Yet they remained tethered, not by rope or command, but by a quiet force neither humans nor science could fully explain. They didn't play like other animals. They didn't frolic. They coexisted, like souls who had crossed the threshold of death and come back together. Lily drafted a proposal to the South Dakota Wildlife Board, a new type of sanctuary, dual species, secure, semi-wild, a place where wolves and mustangs could coexist under monitored care. The initial reaction was fierce. One board member scoffed, "You're trying to engineer a biological disaster. What if they turn on each other?" Lily didn't argue. She simply played the footage, Dustpaw licking water onto Rowdy's lips, Dustpaw growling to defend him. Dustpaw and Rowdy pressing foreheads through wire. The room went silent. "We always believed instinct was fixed," Lily said, softly. "But what sets species apart isn't claws or teeth. It's the ability to choose compassion when no one expects it. Dustpaw made that choice." After hours of debate, the motion passed, and in early March, the gates to a new sanctuary opened. A wooden sign stood between two jagged red stones. Dustpaw's Watch, a place for healing. A place for the impossible. The land spanned 120 acres, fields, creek beds, stone ledges, and hidden alcoves. Dustpaw had a raised stone perch beside Rowdy's paddock, where he lay for hours, watching. Sometimes Rowdy ran past, then stopped, lifted his head to look. Dustpaw would twitch an ear, just once, and that was enough. Rowdy knew he was still there. Hundreds of visitors came every week. But once, just once, the cameras caught something different. Rowdy had a nightmare. He thrashed, kicked, no handler reached him in time. Dustpaw, sound asleep nearly 20 yards away, suddenly stood, trotted to the fence, and lay down just a few feet from him. Rowdy calmed, then slept. Mava watched the footage with tears in her eyes. She turned to Lily and said, "We were never the only ones who knew how to love." Spring winds whispered through the hills of the Badlands, threading through crags and canyons like ancient songs untold. Inside the sanctuary, now known as Dustpaw's Watch, green blades of grass pierced through the dry earth left behind by a long, brutal winter. The air smelled of red dust, young moss, and freshly cut hay. At the highest rock outcrop of the observation paddock, Dustpaw lay, eyes fixed on the horizon. Below, Rowdy galloped in wide arcs, his mane catching wind like wildfire. Since its opening, Dustpaw's Watch had become a quiet phenomenon, not because of its size, not because of comfort, but because of a single story, one about an old wolf and a lost foal, had made people believe in the impossible. They believed that survival could come not only from instinct, but from compassion, a quality long claimed as uniquely human, but no longer. On a Tuesday, a group of elementary school children toured the grounds. Among them was Clara, a red-haired girl who paused when she saw Dustpaw lying silently. She turned to Mava and asked, "Why didn't the wolf eat the horse? My mom says wolves are hunters." Mava knelt, placing a gentle hand on Clara's shoulder. "Because sometimes," she said, "when your heart has hurt enough, you don't want to cause hurt in anyone else." Clara didn't fully understand, but when she turned back to Dustpaw, her eyes had changed, from fear to reverence. News spread. National Geographic called it a turning point in cross-species empathy. The New York Times ran a column titled, "When a Wolf Chose Mercy, a Lesson for Humanity." TV shows, podcasts, wildlife forums, and above all, millions of people online began sharing footage, photos, and reflections. One night, a clip from the sanctuary's infrared cameras went viral. Rowdy thrashed in his sleep, legs flailing, breath ragged with a nightmare. Dustpaw, dozing inside his enclosure 60 feet away, suddenly woke. He didn't howl. He didn't bark. He simply walked to the fence and sat. Within a minute, Rowdy calmed, then slowly approached the mesh and rested his forehead against it. That image, wolf and horse, pressed together through wire, became the cover of a best-selling book. Amber Eyes and Hoofbeats, Stories from the Badlands, written by Lily herself. It became curriculum in several universities, from animal behavior to psychology. But for Lily, the real legacy wasn't on any bookshelf. It lived in people, quietly, deeply. She remembered a man, Walter McBride, 76 years old, once a wolf hunter. He came to the sanctuary one quiet afternoon and stood by the fence for hours. When Lily approached, he said only one thing: "I've killed dozens like him, and I don't think I ever understood a damn thing." Later, he made an anonymous donation, enough to fund an entire biological research outpost within the sanctuary. On the wall of that outpost, they etched his words into a copper plate, beside a sketch of Dustpaw and Rowdy standing side by side. Dustpaw's health was still monitored closely. He was no longer young, his back legs sometimes trembled on longer walks. But he was never alone. Caretakers gently combed out tangles from his coat, draped blankets over him at night, and brought small cut meat warmed to the exact temperature he could chew. He never howled for his pack again. Maybe because he had found it. Rowdy grew fast. He now stood shoulder-high to a grown man, eyes bright with curiosity. But he never strayed far. When the staff once moved him to a wider paddock, he became irritable, stopped eating, stopped sleeping. When they returned him near Dustpaw, he immediately resumed grazing. They didn't need words. Presence was their language. Lily sat on the familiar wooden bench, watching them both, one at the twilight of life, one just beginning. Yet they had found what few ever do: unconditional connection. At the 6-month anniversary of Dustpaw's watch, Lily spoke before a crowd of over 1,000 conservationists, journalists, schoolchildren, and locals. She didn't use slides, no microphone, just her voice, standing beneath a lone cottonwood, the plains stretching out behind her. We speak of miracles as if they belong in old books, in myths, in something far away. But sometimes, miracles appear right in front of us. When a wolf chooses not to follow instinct. When a foal learns not all who approach carry teeth. And when we as people learn to listen to what's never said aloud. Dustpaw didn't speak, but he did more than words ever could. He chose mercy. When no one asked him to, he stood at the edge of life and death and chose to protect instead of destroy. And I believe if there's anything to be learned here, it's this. Kindness doesn't belong to one species. It belongs to any heart brave enough to open, even after it's been broken. That night, the South Dakota sky was clear, stars blazing. The wind slid softly across the grass. In the silver glow of moonlight, Dustpaw stood on his rock perch, head lifted slightly, amber eyes reflecting back the world. 10 yards away, Rowdy lay awake, watching. He didn't whinny. Dustpaw didn't howl. They didn't need to. Their gaze met. A wolf. A Mustang. Two souls who had touched the edge of death and chosen to remain. No contact, no sound, only understanding. And in that silence, they wrote a final chapter, not penned by humans, but one the world paused to hear. If your heart skipped a beat when you looked into Dustpaw and Rowdy's eyes, leave a comment below. Just type 0 if you were speechless, or 1 if you believe in miracles that go beyond instinct. That's how we know you're here, breathing in rhythm with these healing stories. Don't forget to subscribe to True Animal Stories, because ahead lies more journeys between humans and wild souls, where compassion speaks louder than any language. See you in the next story.